in way of context, the mission of Filecoin was to store, or is to store real data. And so this particular topic isn't an issue if all you're doing is sealing committed capacity. But we see now that real data is being brought on board slowly at first through things like Slingshot. I just checked, from what I can see right now, there's 105 petabytes of real data on the network today. And I'm not sure what everyone else is seeing here, but we're seeing a huge interest in onboarding a lot of data, a lot more data. We've got potential customers that are looking at providing like up to an exabyte of data, real data. So take aside the whole issue of verified deals, Fill Plus, and all that stuff. What my concern was is this topic of data ingestion rates, because traditionally we really had, as storage providers, we had two things that really mattered, right? One was how much can I store, which is a function primarily of how much fill I can get my hands on at an affordable rate, plus some CapEx in terms of a bunch of JBODs. But the other thing was how quick can I store? How quick can I seal stuff? And now I think it's become apparent in terms of how do I get the data on the network? What are the factors that influence how quickly I can seal? One of the things you've probably seen me talk about on Slack was the market node, which has been being replaced by Boost. And Boost is phenomenal. It's got a great system for much faster data transfer rates. But it's still at this time linked up to one market or Boost node per miner. So you can scale out your sealing operation. You can make your sealing cluster as big as you want, but you're still limited to one Boost or market node. So that begs the question, well, how much are you going to seal before you have to stand up another miner and stand up another miner? And is that a problem for you? Today, are you saying, well, I just stand up additional miners, not a big deal? Or is it like, hey, this is really cost inefficient to have so many miners just to ingest as much data as I want to? So I just threw a couple questions up there for you. And it's not necessarily just the whole market node scaling issue. It could be, fill as a limiting factor. Your network bandwidth. I know we talked to some folks here who are from Australia. Their bandwidth costs to go across the internet are fairly high. PiKNiK has a 100 gigabit line, so we're able to move up to about a PIB a day through that line. So we could buy more internet drops if we have to. Of course, there's CapEx. So really, it's meant to be a discussion in terms of what's your target and what are those things that are really causing you pain today in terms of reaching those targets. Even if you're not feeling it today, maybe you've calculated it and asked yourself, gee, what am I going to do to reach the target I want to reach? And I also expect that different storage providers are going to have different senses of capacity today in terms of how fast they can process data through, whether it's their internet connection, whether it's their market node or their Boost node. Your hardware configuration obviously has something to do with it. We're spending a lot of time on research on how to optimize the hardware, but I know Protocol Labs was interested too in terms of they sent us some questions in the last week or two about market node scaling or Boost scaling.
Yeah. But how many of you have challenges today with sealing rates or deal ingestion rates? Sorry, anyone? And what's your biggest challenge?
I mean, transfer is always an issue. It's probably the number one question you get from clients is how do I get my data to you and what does that cost? And and then that's variable, right? So every client's different. Their infrastructure's all different. And then, yeah, I mean, from actual ingestion, again, depends on your system and your setup. I've been using PiKNiK. PiKNiK's great from that side, but again, yeah, just depends on the scale. If we can't handle the scale, we have to find another SP that that can help. So,
Yeah, Stefan, I want to piggyback. So my pregnant wife gave me the one thing I can't speak through. Just piggybacking on that, and Deep's dodged the question by not being here today. But I know we've been talking about Backbone. We've been talking about, ZX was talking about 5 petabytes a day. We physically can't move that around the globe right now.
Yeah.
So whether it's all of us, the storage providers coming together, whether it's PL, we need the capability to move petabytes of data through the superhighways. Otherwise, we just can't achieve our goals.
Yeah.
However fast you can seal, we've got a ton of sealing capacity, but we can't ingest a petabyte a day.
Where's the bottleneck for you?
Receiving, from clients, you guys, from theirs, in theory, we can receive, but depending where it's coming from. If it's coming from a client storage provider that doesn't have the capabilities, same thing, right? You went through the journey with Show of like moving it physically, then here, then there. So, that as an ecosystem is a huge challenge that we need to solve globally.
So basically 2 problems. One is like you mentioned, and you mentioned the same thing, moving it from the client to the network and then distributing it in the network, right? And there's an initiative ongoing right now for us to look at how can we take certain edge points in the network, meaning SPs that also can act as sort of an on-ramp into the network for other SPs, right? And so, please connect with us if you're interested in collaborating with that, because in the end, like you said earlier, ZX said, hey, our goal is 5 pip of ingest a day. Now we're doing around a pip a day. So we need to multiply that by 5 to get to 400 pip by, I think it was October, which should be very feasible, but we have to have this built out. Yeah.
And you've got to build on that, talking about clients that 100 petabytes, large amounts that you then say, okay, times how many copies, then you've got to get it to the other storage providers. And the build up on that is, we're a relatively large storage provider, right, with a lot of compute, a lot of space. Even then, when we start dealing with a lot of data, you say, oh, what about network? And so there's a lot more investment that then goes into network internally. And this isn't stuff, so, inviting new storage providers on and getting people up to speed, trying to help to work on the outlay of costs for scale and what you're going to need to do. As every time we hit a new kind of milestone in the business, you find another thing that you've got to invest a bit more into, right, to be able to deal with capacity. So it's just, again, sharing knowledge and best practices. And I know a lot of the guys have built technologies that can help with things, so we just got to share all that around.
Yeah, certainly there's, like PiKNiK, we've got a data ingestion engine that we're looking at how we can share that out, as well as S3 connectors. So there's the technical, like, how do I connect? But then there's these questions about the raw speed. And I think with Phil Plus, the real question is, that becomes a multiplying factor, right? Maybe times 5, times 10 in some cases in terms of replicas. So now you've got to worry about those bottlenecks. Yeah.
Hey, Stu.
Yeah.
Just want to do also a shameless plug for the very thing we're talking about in terms of the infrastructure issues that we're facing. We are very much thinking about a hybrid approach in terms of having a sort of backbone, high bandwidth sort of connection across certain nodes that are regional, and then complementing that with a more scalable and operationalized offline data solution for onboarding and first mile. I will say, anybody who is interested in participating in some pilots that I'm going to run in the next few weeks, please reach out. I do want to understand what the different dynamics are, both in the technical feasibility, but also the economic viability of doing this, because it surely will not be super easy. So let me know and reach out. I'd be really interested in working with anybody who wants to try to scale this. My name is João, Joao. You can find me on Slack.
So just to add one more thing, sorry, and I'm monopolizing this a little bit, but Stu and PiKNiK, great example, and I know Vinand in the Netherlands as well, where they have created technology that they've put a lot of time, effort, and money into creating that are going to help with the process. As a group, again, can we create ways to ensure they can share that and be compensated for it, right, as an ROI? It's like anything else. Build a piece of technology, whether it's licensing, whatever that model is, or a ton of fill, I don't know from the middle, but we all need access to these really cool bits of technology that have been developed through the hard yards of doing the work. So share them.
Yeah, appreciate that. It's, none of this comes free. We've got, fairly fairly significant investment of software development, but, you know, we're trying to do it in a fair way, a way that makes sense, so it's always a win-win for us, right?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention too, I mean, you know, we have tools like IPFS cluster is an amazing tool and it's lightning fast, use like a Badger store. I mean, you can join a cluster, sync petabytes insanely quickly. We have that capability in this community. It's we don't have a kind of organized way to access it and coordinate together. So, you know, we have the tools at our disposal. I just think we need a little bit more organization around, implementing, to help.
Hence the value of networking events like this, right?
So I guess my takeaway is we definitely have to follow up on that program that Deep is building now. So we'll give you an update on the next storage meetup, or when we have an earlier update, we'll do it online. But the reality is we are working on it. So we're open to ideas if you want to participate. If you have strong, fast network connectivity into data centers into a certain area, let us know. I know a lot of you do, so you should collaborate. And then what you were referring to is like, indeed, like we are looking at, is it IPFS or is it something else that could help like with, you know, becoming that staging server to actually ingest it. And then what Joao's working on is even also is cool too, because that's really like the data movement from shipping it from the client or maybe from an SP to another SP as a physical device. Anyone else? Oh, cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So it seems like the cost of actually sealing is relatively irrelevant compared to the cost of networking and transportation. Is that a fair enough statement? Like you don't even really, barely factors into the conversation. You've already invested the money in the sealing equipment. You don't use outsourced, and it's just focusing on the network side.
I'm looking at our finance guy, Mr. Stanko.
So that's so Andrew Stanko here, finance team in PiKNiK, as I get put on the spot. But I guess I was thinking about that. Can I think about that in reverse for a moment to give myself a little headroom as I try to look more? Now I understand why politicians like delay. By the way, because like I was trying, one of my like little sub games or questions I was going to ask is like just as a thought experiment, because we're all storage providers, is how much would you charge if you had access to this, or like how much would you pay? Because I don't know. Because like it's a huge investment, right? Like it's kind of wide open. You don't want to do it. There's a ton of risk, but like I don't. It's something I actually came into the week trying to figure out myself, if that makes sense. Because I don't. It's definitely not. I don't know. Just like in reverse, like if you say, oh, it's free storage or free sealing, I'm like, what is the catch? So like all of a sudden my like risk ears perk up. So that's while I was on my phone trying to develop the answer. So I don't know if that helps you, but. Yeah. Love it. Love it.
Here.
Yeah.
The question is when you think about growth, right?
Yeah.
You want to double in size, triple in size.
Sure.
You wake up and say, okay, we need to invest in networking. We need to buy more pipes, or do you wake up and say we need to invest in more storage racks, or do you wake up and say we need to invest more in our sealing
Right.
infrastructure,
Well,
insourced or outsourced?
You want Drew?
Yeah, I mean, without going to specific costs and financing, I mean, theoretically, the mining rewards can fund your future storage capex. So, you know, balancing that upfront capex between processing capacity and storage capacity, you know, arguably we probably went a little too light on processing upfront and sort of did half and half. But in hindsight, I probably would have invested more in processing up front and used my block rewards to fund future storage capacity.
Right. Like, is it wrong to say? Because there was an ESPA participant, Akron Tech, that had that idea or that template where like how much you seal informs how much you buy in storage, and like mapping that cycle out. And that's probably something everybody figures out on their own. But that's something I always thought about as a useful way, aside from just purely block rewards, as forecasting out how I'm going to spend. Because you're right, like they're all interrelated. It's like it's hard that way. I mean, if it were easy, I would be up there too with Stu. Here's a slide, come at me. But no, I think they're all interrelated. Is my big point.
Yeah, and to comment to that as well, like we are seeing SPs that are here in the room looking at offering sealing as a service. because there are SPs that either didn't invest enough in compute or don't necessarily have the need for a compute for a very long time because you may be buying compute and only need it 20% of the time. So there are some people here in the room that are now thinking of offering sealing as a service where you can actually do the numbers and you can see that if you can seal within a certain time frame, let's say within a month versus 6 months, and yes, it's more like a one-time pay, but it still pays off because you're going to get faster access to block rewards. Any other comments to that? No? Anyone?
Yeah. Just now you have spoken about our sealing service. Actually, our team, we are actually working on the remote sealing. We have actually invested 60 million of sealing equipments. So currently what we are thinking is we are going to build our sealing centers in the United States. So to provide this service to the SPs in the States.
So
yeah.
Who are you?
Yeah, maybe introduce
Oh,
yourself.
yeah, hi. Hi, everyone. We are from Greater Heat. We are based in Singapore. Yeah, so previously we were actually based in China. And due to the previous China policy change, we have actually changed our headquarters to Singapore. So currently we are building our sealing centers in the States and the Europe area.
And how much capacity do you have in Singapore or in general?
In general, overall, we actually have 500 pips.
500 petabytes?
Yep.
Okay,
500.
nice. Welcome, yeah.
And some portion of the IDC is in Hong Kong, and we are actually shifting our IDC to the States this year.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we've got a lot of US SPs here, so good collaboration opportunities, I would say. Anyone else wants to contribute or any comments, suggestions, actions for us? Literally, like, is there anything that we should be thinking about? Because sealing as a service is something we're actively pursuing, right? As well, and how can we optimize the code to allow the SPs to provide better sealing as a service offerings as well? The other initiative that we are driving, which we haven't really talked about, is the improving the aggregate sealing rate as well. With some of the top vendors, we're actually collaborating on a regular basis to see how can we optimize the performance so you can get more throughput out of your existing hardware. Of course, that's a little bit of a longer-term process, but it is an initiative that's ongoing. With Seagate, AMD, Supermicro, and a couple of other vendors that are interested in collaborating. So expect, like in the next year, to see like continuous improvement there as well. Sorry, was there another question? Yeah, go ahead.
This is Steve from Finance. We have a Filecoin staking service, and the customer demand is very high. So we are receiving a lot of fee every day. And right now, our staking services are connected to a few miners. So if we have running a good miner, we can connect it to you, because we can receive a lot of fee from customers. Yeah. Tomorrow I will introduce the Finance, the Filecoin staking service. And we also run a couple of nodes in Silicon Valley. We have like about 50 P, our own.
50 petabytes?
Yeah.
Nice.
And we also manage a few our partners, and they have about like 200 P. That's there, but we operate for them in Silicon Valley. So we have a lot of sealing power, and we also have a lot of field that we can work together to make the system more scalable.
Like, roughly, like if we wanted to go and say, hey, we got disk drives and we want to seal, how much would you charge to seal, let's say, a PIB or something, or TIB?
So basically, like, we have the series machine, right? And it's paid like a monthly fee. It depends on how much power you need. For example, so you want to seal 1 P, and I don't remember the exact price, but we can discuss later. But it's all about how much power you need and how fast you need to seal. It's a very easy calculation.
Hi, I'm from Origin Storage. We're also a storage provider. I just want to follow up on that question, and I have like a recommendation. Like, if you want to be a storage provider long term, the market right now, I suggest you to buy your own sealing machine, because if the monthly fee is like a monthly payment of actually buying the sealing machine, and it's way more expensive than you just buy a sealing machine yourself to use it, instead of like paying a couple months, because eventually you'll need your own sealing machine. And the best way is just to find the cheapest hardware to seal your data. And there is some like physical restrictions. You can, if they have their sealing machine like in Los Angeles and you're sealing in like New York, then it's going to be hard. You have to be physically near them. So that for them to ship their machine to you, it's going to increase your cost. So I suggest you like to structure your mining pool from the beginning, not like using their service. Yeah.
Great. And you're based out of?
We're in Raleigh, North Carolina. Yeah.
Depending on, I mean, I agree with you to some extent, though I think given sort of the price action on Filecoin as of late, it's hard to get folks to make that investment in GPUs and high core, EPYC or Intel processors. So I think there is a sort of a viable means by which to do sealing as a service. It just, I guess we just need to figure out what the mechanics of it are. I think we know how to do it practically or technically, which like for first iteration is as simple as just deploying a VPN node and essentially giving you a slice of the GPUs using SRVIO. I think SRIOV, sorry. And then giving you direct access to the GPUs. So we can seal somewhere to the tune of like 10 PIBs a day for folks. And we don't really know where the market is with respect to costs, but we're happy to engage anyone that's looking to do anything like that as well.
That's great, thank you. And also, we are hearing that it's hard in certain regions to get the compute. There's still like long lead times, so that's another reason why you would like use another sealer or sealing as a service, as David was saying.